Okay. All right. Please take your seats so that we may begin. We're at the hour, 7 o'clock now, so I think we're going to start the live stream. Okay. Welcome to the Bennelong Candidate Forum here at Eastwood Uniting Church. We are honoured that you have all taken the time to be here tonight. This event is hosted and supported by the Nature Conservation Council, Lane Cove Coal and Gas Watch, the Climate Council, Lane Cove Bushland and Conservation Society, Multicultural Leadership Initiative, Climate Change Action Group, Climate Change Balmain Roselle, Ride Hunters Hill Flora and Fauna Preservation Society, Ride Gladesville Climate Change Action Group, ACF Lower North Shore Community Group, and Asian Australians for Climate Solutions. I'm Kai Chiu, a volunteer with the ACF Lower North Shore Community Group, and I live in Gladesville. I used to live in Ryde, and as a child I went to piano lessons in Rose Street, just here in Eastwood, as well as Chinese lessons on weekends at Eastwood Public School. Unfortunately, I was not a good student, and my Chinese is non-existent. I do apologise to the Chinese community for that. I will be your MC for this evening. Joining me is Brad Smith, there he is down the front, who is Policy and Advocacy Director with the Nature Conservation Council, and he will help to moderate any questions that come through on Slido. So general housekeeping. For those who may not be aware, toilets are through there and to the left, and emergency exits are out through the right-hand side. A reminder that we are live streaming the event on the Nature Conservation Council YouTube channel. We know there are people tuning in who weren't able to make it to this event in person. So a quick shout out to everyone watching the live stream, including Beverly Young and her friends who are having a watch party at a local retirement home. Were we going to have the slides? Okay. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this land, the Wallumattagal clan and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are present here today. Okay. Tonight's forum is a chance to hear directly from the candidates standing for election in our local electorate of Bennelong. The agenda for the evening will have opening statements, okay, yep, it's up there, from each of the candidates, followed by 4 pre-prepared questions. Audience questions depending on time, and then short closing remarks. Each candidate will have equal time to respond. There will be a warning bell to indicate they should start wrapping up what they are saying, and bells to indicate time. We are using Slido as the platform to submit your questions, and there you go. So you can scan the QR code up on screen or use the web address and the code to submit your questions online anytime throughout the evening. And I'm not sure if there are printouts. Okay, so up there on the windows and at the back as well, there are printouts, so people can scan the QR code up there as well throughout the evening. We are here to listen to the candidates respond on the issues that concern us, such as cost of living, climate, energy, nature, and the environment. We ask the audience to stay on topic when submitting their questions. This is an opportunity to hear from them so we can make an informed decision when we cast our votes. We expect people to respect the rights of candidates to respond without interruption, and we expect the candidates to respect the time limit so that all candidates can respond to as many questions as possible. We ask everyone to recognise that this is an opportunity to listen and ask questions, not to make speeches. You can always approach candidates or their officers in their own time if we don't get to your question tonight. This event is to be conducted with respect to the forum, the candidates, and each other. And if anyone does try to disrupt the evening, we will be asking you to leave. I would like everyone to keep in mind when you go to cast your vote that the role of an elected representative is to be accountable to their community and represent their views of their electorate in Parliament. especially when they vote on legislation. Every single one of us is not able to personally go to Canberra and deliberate and vote on every single piece of legislation. Instead, we elect a representative for this area of Bennelong to do that on our behalf. I would like you all to keep this in mind, that the people we elect are meant to listen to us and work for us, and that it should be seen as an honour and a privilege to be chosen by us to represent the good people of Bennelong in our federal parliament in Canberra. Before I introduce the candidates, I would like to hand over to Louis Luong from Asian Australians for Climate Solutions. Did you want to come up here, Louis?
Thank you, Kali. Hello, everyone. I'm here on behalf of Asian Australians for Climate Solution, and I'm also here because I would like to see from our diverse communities in Ryde, if anyone would like translation for Mandarin or Cantonese, I'm able to help today. The candidates who have provided their talking points will be showing on the screen as the speakers take the speech today. But afterwards, during question time, we encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to submit your questions via our Slido page, or I believe we have papers and pens ready as well. And I'm going to Chinese mode now. 如果大家有问题想用中文去发问的话，可以用我们的纸跟笔，还有我们一个网站，可以通过你手机。如果你用中文问的时候呢，你写下你需要广东话或者是国语的翻译，我们回答的时候会给你候选人的回答给你用中文翻译。I will just say that it will be, if there is any questions in Chinese, we will help you translate the questions for your benefits. I'll pass it back to Kai. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. I'd like to now introduce our candidates. Do we have the slide? Okay, so those speaking tonight Jerome Laxell from the Labour Party. He'll be joining us via video link. You can see him up on the screen. We have Barry Devine. Yeah. I'll give a pause between each person. We have Barry Devine here on the left from the Heart Party. And next to him is John August from the Fusion Party. And Adam Hart from the Greens Party. Thank you for joining us tonight. And for those who are not in attendance, you can see we have empty seats for them with their names on it. So that's Craig Bennett of One Nation, Eric Chan of Family First, Robert Nalbandian, Trumpet of Patriots, and Scott Yung of the Liberal Party. They were all invited, but could not attend this evening. So, without further ado, let us move to the opening statements from each of the candidates. We'll now hear a short opening statement. Each person will have 2.5 minutes each. The timekeeper, so that's Weiss down here at the front, will ring the bell when there is 1 minute remaining, and then there will be bells when time is up. We might start with Jerome. We might go with the order that we were introduced just then. So, Jerome, are you okay to?
Yeah, happy to.
All right, you're up first. You have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. Look, I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land. I'm coming from Walmadigal land in North Ryde, and I know Bennelong now includes Camaragal land as well over in Lane Cove. Look, it's just such an honour to be able to address you today as a candidate, but obviously being the current sitting MP. What all your groups are doing tonight is really, really important, and congratulations to you for putting this on, and thank you for letting me appear online. I've met so many of the groups that you mentioned tonight, and you do such an important job in helping our society tackle probably one of the most complex, energy transitions and policy rollouts that we're facing right now. Those who know me would know how passionate I am about climate change, how passionate I am about the environment. And you would have seen everything I've achieved as mayor and as a councillor. And now hopefully you've seen what I'm bringing to the Parliament, being your voice, advocating for more climate action and more action on the environment. Before becoming an MP, I had the honour of serving 5 years as the mayor of the city of Ryde, 10 years on the council. In that time, we sort of dragged it out of this environmental slumber into probably one of the most progressive councils at the time, divesting from fossil fuel aligned institutions, declaring a climate emergency, switching to 100% renewable energy use, rolling out electric vehicle chargers, starting the switch for the council's fleet to go electric. I've taken that same passion for action into the federal parliament, and what we've achieved in 3 years is extraordinary in terms of this incredible energy transition that we simply must do. And we just know that all that is at risk if Peter Dutton is elected, and in particular, if a Liberal is elected in Bennelong. So this seat is incredibly important. We're at this sort of crossroads of the energy transition and action on climate change. You would have thought that the Liberal Party would have learnt their lessons at the last election, but they seem to have doubled down, threatening to exit the Paris Agreement, threatening to stop investment in renewable energy for nuclear. Like, this is incompatible with taking climate action and with transitioning to cheap
Jerome,
and renewable
that is time.
energy.
I'm not sure, can you hear the bell from where you are, or will I need to give you warning?
I cannot hear the bell, sorry.
Okay.
I would have wrapped up
I'll give you
earlier.
just a few seconds to wrap up then, but yeah, that's the 2.5 minutes.
I'm happy to address it more in the questions and the closing statement, but look, I'm someone that's always cared for the environment and wanted to progress. If I have the honour of being re-elected, that won't stop for the next 3 years.
Okay. Thank you, Jerome. Barry Devine from the Heart Party, you now have 2.5 minutes. Oh, you want to speak up here? No, yeah, there's a microphone between, yes, there is, yeah.
Hello everyone, and thank you for coming and having me here. My name's Barry Devine. I'm the standing as the candidate for Bennelong with the Heart Party. I've been in Bennelong area for 32 years until they changed the borders recently, but I will be moving back to Bennelong in the next 6 months. Yes, the Heart Party, Heart stands for Health, Environment, Accountability, Rights and Transparency. I think there's a lot of those that need to be addressed, especially with rights and accountability. My view on climate change may not thrill you all, but I actually need to see some reports. I've seen things one way and the other, and I'm not steadfast one way or the other at the moment, because I have seen reports saying that carbon actually follows temperature rather than temperature following carbon. So I'm not a climate scientist myself, and I have to do all my own research, which I'm not overly prepared for tonight. But yeah, everything I've seen and researched, there are a lot of problems that are rushing into this renewables. We're going to destroy our environment. If you saw the amount of land we're going to have to clear and the animal habitats we're going to disturb, that's disturbing for me, because I actually care about the land, air, sea and flora and fauna. So I think we need to do some more research on which way we're going to go.
1 minute.
I know a lot of people are against nuclear, and I'm doing some research on both costs and safety studies. As I say, I'd have to do all my own research, because I don't belong to a big party that have other people doing it for me. I think that houses can have solar and batteries, and but there is problems with dirty electricity. I'm not sure if you've heard about dirty electricity, but it can affect your health. So we need to do some research studies before we do too much more. Dirty electricity is high frequency that is evolved from the magnetism between solar cells. So anyway, I'm not convinced about whether climate change is real. I need some more evidence. And
we are at time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to John August from the Fusion Party. You have 2.5 minutes.
Okay. Yes, so I'm with the pirate branch of the Fusion Party. Now, I've been quite interested in environmental issues for quite some time now. There were 2 previous years I turned up to memorial events for the Bramble Cay Malomies. That's a rodent in northern Australia that's believed to be the first animal that's become extinct in Australia as a result of climate change. Now, speaking more broadly, we have the bogong moths and the pygmy possums in the Australian Alps that eat them, and basically we've had the populations of both of them impacted in previous years. So apart from that, there is obviously the fact that the Fusion Party is serious about reducing the carbon dioxide output of the Australian industrial economy, and hopefully those issues will come up in the subsequent questions will be asked. But one thing I will point out is that myself and other Fusion people went to a Libertarian Party meeting where they had some climate denialists there, and that did in fact prompt me to record a video saying how climate change really is a thing in spite of these claims. So yes, Fusion Party, we're a very small party compared to the larger parties. We're on the back foot in comparison. One of the things that we're not able to do is, nail our core flutes to the telegraph poles, as what happened once upon a time. Now, obviously, it's also true that the majors can't do that either, but if you go to any polling booth, there is a sea of core flutes, and we are going to struggle with that in comparison. Now, Anatole France said that
1 minute.
Anatole France said that, goodness me, the law in its majestic equality dictates that neither the rich nor the poor can sleep under bridges. So I think that's a valid comparison there. So perhaps you'll want to vote for our party in its own right, but maybe you have mixed feelings about the major parties, recognising the things that they've done or that they aspire to do, but also having misgivings about them. So if you want to send a message along those lines, recognising the good, but also saying, look, there's an issue here, giving a party like my own a first preference vote would be a good thing. And I expect this contest to get heated as time goes on. I wonder what collateral damage will be, but my wish to you is that you find a candidate you feel comfortable voting for, whether that be myself or someone else. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And now we have Adam Hart of the Greens Party. You have 2.5 minutes.
Good evening.
Is that working? Try again.
Hello? Can my time please be restarted?
I think that's fair.
Thank you.
Weiss, you're all good for timekeeping? Okay. All right, when you're ready.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me. Before I start, I too want to pay acknowledgement to country. We are all here on the land of the Wallumaga people of the Darug Nation. This land has never been ceded, always was, and always will be Aboriginal land. So my name is Adam Hart. I like to start off with a bit of a joke with my middle name. Those close to me call me Adam Sweetheart, but only those friendly can call me that tonight. So look, my background, I've worked in community services for over 10 years, specialising in disability. I've worked heavily in the NDIS space as an NDIS plan specialist, so working with people to make sure that they get what they need, make sure that there's equitable access for the resources that they need to get for everyday life. And part of addressing social justice is obviously climate change. We see that women and children, often in poorer countries, in Pacific Island countries, are the most affected. But people here in Australia are also affected with the cost of living of the current electricity prices. We see that gas has been falling in price, but we're still paying international skyrocketing prices. We have a plan with the Greens to heavily invest into green technology, solar panels, wind farms, making sure that it's recyclable and sustainable to bring the cost down for everyday people as well as small businesses to address the issue holistically, not just the climate emergency that we are in, but the everyday cost of living crisis that we are all in. People talk about the cost of living crisis as we're all in the same storm, but while that might be true, we might be in the same storm, we're all in different boats. There are people that are not affected by the cost of living at all because they earn squillions. We need to tax the mega wealthy. We need to tax the 1 in 3 corporations that do not pay tax to make sure that it's an equitable system for everyone. Life is hard, and the cards that you're dealt the cards that you're dealt are not equitable for everybody. We need to even out the playing field to make sure everyone has what they need to thrive and survive.
Thank you, Adam. We will now move to our prepared questions. Each candidate will respond in turn. It will be a bit of a random mix. Next slide. Okay, I realize what I should have done is probably written this down. Okay, I'm going to have to turn around to sort of read this better. Over the last 2 decades, electricity and gas prices have gone up faster than inflation. Households with solar panels are the only ones who've been able to reduce their bills. What will your party do to support people who've been hit hardest by the cost of living crisis and ensure more people can access cheap, clean electricity? Next slide. Okay, we will start with John August from the Fusion Party. So you can see up on the slide is a Chinese translation of the points that he has provided.
Okay, well, hopefully I'll be able to remember them, we will see. But,
you have 2 minutes. And the bell will go when you have 30 seconds remaining.
Okay, you might have to remind me of some of the points. But we are in belief of having batteries in households now. The Pirate Party that I am a member of, going back 10 or 20 years ago, we were a believer in microgrids. Now, the grid itself and the way we buy and sell electricity is to some degree eclipse that, but we can certainly have an exchange of power between households this side of the substation. So the other thing is to have those batteries, because batteries in the households means that you can take that surplus power that's available in the afternoon and provide it in the other hours where it is more expensive. That means you have more options for the people who have these batteries, and you also have cheaper power for the people who are receiving that power, because these things are a function of supply and demand. So in a sense, if you have a battery, it's a double benefit. It's a benefit for you, and it's also a benefit for everybody else. I think its statistics are something like 1/3 of households have batteries, but only 1/20 of them, a third of households have solar, but only 1/20 of them have batteries. So there's some great opportunities for batteries to be expanded. And while there is some controversy around solar panels outside, solar panels and our roofs, there's no issue with social licence. We can put whatever we like on our roofs and no one's going to stop us, and in fact we may well want to. So it is a different situation. There's a lot of roofs around Australia that can be taken advantage of. And forgive me, I probably had a third point that's up in translation, and I have
30 seconds.
I have in fact forgotten what that is, but I'll leave it at that for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Can we have the slides up again? Okay. Jerome Laxale, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
So So I'll split this question into two parts. What have we done for cost of living relief, and what will we do to ensure more people can access cheap and clean electricity? So when we came to government, interest rates were rising, inflation had a 6 in front of it. Now interest rates are falling, and for the second consecutive time, we have inflation within band at around 2.4%. And throughout each budget we've handed down, we've delivered cost of living relief. We've capped the price of essential medicines, reduced the price of medicines as well. We've introduced 60-day prescriptions, saving household time and money. We've increased childcare subsidies, which has seen childcare reduced by 13%. We've opened urgent care clinics in Top Ryde, with one more to come in Chatswood. And we're obviously doing huge investments into increased bulk billing. We've also delivered targeted energy bill relief, and restructured Scott Morrison's really unfair tax cuts to ensure that people on middle and low incomes actually got something. People that earned under $45,000 were not going to get a cent under the Liberals' plan. We've broadened that tax cut so that everyone got a tax cut, and will deliver more. On cheap and clean electricity, this is something I'm really passionate about, something I want everybody to be able to access, and we're making progress there. We've rolled out solar and battery support for apartment dwellers with the $25 million partnership with the New South Wales government. We've got $800 million for a social housing energy performance initiative. We've rolled out $1 billion in household energy upgrade funds so people can access low-cost loans. You couple that with our recently announced $2.3 billion cheaper home batteries program. We get all these incentives to try and help people access renewable energy, store renewable energy, and reduce their power prices. Again, every cost of living relief, all our action on renewable energy, opposed by the Liberals.
Thank you, Jerome. Okay, next we have Adam Hart from the Greens Party. Yep, that sounds like it's working.
Yeah, it's working this time. Okay, so I think the best way to tackle this problem is, just like how Jerome said, is to break it up into two parts. So addressing the cost of living crisis, the Greens have a plan to make price gouging illegal. So when you go to the supermarket, you're not paying exorbitant prices for everyday needs. This is hurting everyone. It's hurting small businesses, and it's hurting individuals alike. Additionally, what we would like to put into place, if we were in minority government, would be to make medications for concession holders free, and to make the current concession price available to non-concession holders. So if you don't have a concession card today, you'll be paying roughly $7.50 for your PBS medications, and if you do have a concession card and were elected, you would pay nothing. That would mean that the health outcomes for people who rely on medications are a lot more consistent, and we'll be working upstream to make sure that people don't have to go to the emergency clinics, and they're getting better health outcomes, living better quality of life for longer as well. When it comes to the electricity and making sure that everyone has the equitable access to these technologies, we would make sure that households have up to $5,000 in grants to access batteries and solar panels. And if they don't want to take up the grant, if they want to go for more, we will have up to $10,000 in low interest loans. Similarly, we would have a $10,000 and $25,000 arrangement in grants and low interest loans for small businesses to bring down the everyday costs that they are facing, and reducing that barrier to access for them as well.
Thank you very much. Adam. Okay, and finally, Barry Devine from the Hart Party.
I was trying to see why the price of gas has gone up so much, and it seems to be because we sell so much overseas, so it's world parity pricing. So obviously prices go up with higher demand and less supply. Households with solar panels are the only ones that have been able to reduce their bills. Yes, that's probably true because they probably bought their solar panels at a subsidised rate. And a lot of the people who bought early got remarkable paybacks from the government, so much per kilowatt hour. It's down to something like 5.5 cents per kilowatt hour now. But yeah, it was really high in the early stages, so a lot of people would show that low energy costs. So I would think that we'd want to give government subsidies for people on low incomes, and also with energy, most people have smart meters now. Smart meters have a high rate between 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. So maybe with low income earners we could either drop the rate for the high bracket, or to narrow that bracket, maybe not as long as 2 to 8 Monday to Friday. I personally use a lot of my high energy devices outside of those times, so I pay quite low energy costs. I have solar cells.
30 seconds.
I've had them for 13 years. Their output has significantly decreased because solar cells, they say they have 25-year lifespan, but most of them really don't have much more than about 15. So I have to work out what I'm going to do with my solar cells in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Okay, question 2. In 2023-24, Australia gave $14.6 billion in subsidies to major fossil fuel producers and consumers. If elected, what are your plans for the swift transition away from fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas? And first up, we have Jerome Laxell of the Labor Party.
Thank you. The best way to transition from coal, oil and gas is to speed up the transition to renewables. And that's something that our government has been doing from the first day we were elected, from legislating an emissions reduction target, which is now law, one of the only countries in the world to actually have it as law, to having a safeguard mechanism that works in reducing emissions, but also to roll out huge investments in renewable energy. We, of course, have an 82% target of renewable energy by 2030, and we're on track. We're on our way there. Over 40% of the grid is now renewable, and we're investing in wind, solar, and storage, whilst also modernising our grid so that it can handle this clean energy. In just one term, we've approved over 80 grid-scale renewable energy projects. That's enough to power over 10 million homes. That's every household in the country. That's just an incredible sign of strength in what the market is seeing as the cheapest form of new energy. And the more renewable energy we get in the system, the less we rely on coal and gas to power our homes and our industry. And you'll hear me say it a bit tonight, particularly on this topic. This election is a huge fork in the road for this progress. I mean, right now, we're one of the top 10 countries in the world for renewable energy investment.
30 seconds.
We've got this incredible solar and wind capacity, and we know that all ends with the election of a Liberal government. So if you care about this stuff, you simply can't vote for them. Sorry, I heard you say something there, so.
Thank you, Jerome.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, next up we have Adam Hart of the Greens Party.
Brilliant. All right. So, unlike the major parties, the Greens, our party and none of our candidates ever have or ever will take any donations from big mining companies. So we don't have the incentive. We're not listening to the lobbyists that are asking us to open up new mines. Under this current government, there's been over 20 new coal and gas mines opened, and we would say no to that. We would phase out the currently open mines, and we would also set to legislate a net zero policy by 2035. We would also take the subsidies that are currently being given out to big companies that sell our gas, the gas that we as Australians own on the international market. So we give them currently grants and then we pay for it again, so we pay for it twice through subsidies. So we're giving them subsidies. And what we would do is we would say no to those subsidies, no more, and we would reinvest that money into sustainable projects. We would make sure that we are investing more into solar, batteries, wind turbines as well. And we would take innovative approaches such as gravity batteries and other hydro-powered solutions as well as we would need.
30 seconds.
I think that answers my question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Adam. Next up, we have, who's up on the slide? Okay, Barry Devine of the Heart Party.
I wasn't aware of $14.6 billion in subsidies to the fossil fuel producers, but I'd certainly remove that so there's some fair pricing. Coal is a cheap, reliable form of electricity, and we're setting deadlines on shutting our coal generation down, electricity generation. If we set deadlines, we're sure to have brownouts if we can't make the deadlines, and blackouts. Does anyone want brownouts or blackouts? I don't think so. So we need to actually structure the program in a way that we keep the coal fire going. But with the coal fire, what's going to happen to the coal? Are we going to leave it in the ground? No, we're going to sell it to China and overseas countries to burn, aren't we? So what have we achieved as far as net zero? Nothing. So we're just selling our cheap energy to give it away to other countries, and then we're going to have this expensive form of electricity, which is going to destroy our environment. There's tens of thousands of kilometres of transmissions going to be required for the solar and the wind farms. And at the moment, they're destroying the snowy mountains, 180-metre passages, just mowing down all the trees, destroying habitats for animals. You know, is that the way to go? Do we want to? We're going to fix the climate by destroying the environment? I don't think that's right.
30 seconds. Yep. Thank you, Barry. And finally, we have John August of the Fusion Party.
Okay, it's in the fusion policy that we want to get rid of all subsidies to fossil fuels, so that's certainly the case. And I have to say, I'm sure we're not the only ones to be saying that. But we are also thinking in terms of things like carbon price and the safeguard mechanism and so on. And these things are actually fine on paper. I think they have a certain amount of power in the way that they relate to the market. The problem is that, you know, you tend to start off with something that makes sense, that starts off sensible, and it sort of suffers the death of 1,000 cuts based on the fossil fuel lobby. So these processes, if the safeguard mechanism actually bit, if the carbon price actually bit, it would make a difference. And I guess, do I want to go down that free market rabbit hole that if you give the market a constraint, it will adapt, it will adjust, and it will do that in an effective way. But I would also say, you know, being an even smaller party than the Greens, and look, I have many differences of policy with the Heart Party, but I don't think they're taking money from fossil fuel lobbies either. So, and we certainly don't do that in the Fusion Party either. But certainly it is something to think about, you know, who is funding the different parties and what is the outcome there. And I'm going off on quite a tangent, but there is the old cliche of ministers ending up working in the industry that they were supervising, and it's amazing the cushy jobs that seem to end up happening.
30 seconds. Thank you, John. Okay, question 3. CSIRO found that nuclear power stations would produce power at twice the cost of renewable sources and storage, and could not be provided in Australia in time to meet the deadline for ending coal-fired power. What is your plan for ensuring affordable, clean power as coal power stations reach the end of their lives over the next decade? Next slide. Okay, we will start with you again, John. John August of the Fusion Party.
Okay, well, what I was talking about before is to expand the use of batteries in the household. Now, there's actually what's called a virtual power plant, and a lot of the electricity providers, they will actually hire your batteries from you and make use of them for their own purposes, and they'll basically feed you with some money each month. Now, if you also get keen, you can actually get wholesale pricing, and it's the old proverbial thing of, buy low and sell high, and you can actually trade that power, and you make money, but by providing power when the market needs it, you're actually lowering the price for everybody. So between batteries and expanding renewables, there's basically the option of moving in that direction. I haven't quite done the calculation yet, but eventually you're going to have enough batteries spread around the whole of Australia that it would be the equivalent of a coal-fired power station. And let me also say that, look, I'm not the only person looking at this. People have done some calculations. And look, we are going to have wind droughts and sun droughts and so on. It's not going to happen often, but occasionally we are going to have to lean on gas-fired power to top up the system. And there's some good calculations of that. It might only be like a month or two every 3 years or something like that, but you've got to crank out the statistics of the weather patterns and so on to come to grips with these sorts of things. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, John. Next up, we have Adam Hart of the Greens Party.
All right, so I might start off with a little bit of trivia. So before we were the Greens, we were the Nuclear Disarmament Party. So unlike my Liberal opponent who isn't here today, who wants to build nuclear power stations, that will drive up the price dramatically, and it won't bring the power for maybe 20 years, I think the last estimate would be. Plus, we would also have the time where we'd have to deal with the legislative requirements to allow us to have nuclear. So we would start addressing it immediately by keeping the momentum going with the renewables that we have. The nuclear plan is 300 to 600, depending on who you get your figures from, $300 to $600 billion gamble that we just cannot afford to take. To address the prices, we would not only invest in the infrastructure that has been neglected for 10 to 20 years, which is contributing to the prices going up, as well as the privatisation that we have all experienced under the Mike Baird Liberal government, where they sold that for billions, promising low power prices. That never happened. We would counter that, and we would establish a public retailer for energy. So the prices would be much more predictable for the end consumer. We would take that approach as well as, again, sustainably and responsibly rolling out renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, next up we have Jerome Laxell of the Labor Party.
Thank you. Well, unlike Peter Dutton, Scott Young and the Liberal Party, we actually believe in the CSIRO and their findings. The science is there. They've told us that the best way to introduce new power and the cheapest way to do that is through renewable energy. That's backed not only by the CSIRO but AEMO. And the fact that coal-fired power stations are closing and reaching the end of their lives is not new. The former government knew this for so long and did absolutely nothing about it. 4 megawatts of power left the system, only 1 megawatt was put in, and of course more leaving the system by the mid-2030s. We need new power in the system now, and unlike my opponent, we believe that the cheapest way to do that is through renewable energy, firmed by storage and gas. We have an 82% target by 2030. I want to be around long enough to see that 82% target increase so that we can take advantage of our enormous solar and wind resources and have that as a competitive advantage for our economy and for manufacturing in particular. Our capacity investment scheme is bringing 32 gigawatts of new renewable energy storage online, but we're doing it at the household too. We're helping households and businesses with batteries to store their solar, I haven't even spoken about the
30 seconds.
Vehicle to grid Australian standards that will transform how people use EVs to power their homes. Got community batteries. Again, there's so much progress here. We need another 3 years to embed that progress as part of our energy system.
Thank you, Jerome. And now we have Barry Devine of the Heart Party.
I haven't read the whole report on the CSIRO. It does say that nuclear is a lot more expensive. But as I understand it, it's only the capital infrastructure that is the biggest setback. So once established, it's a longer payback period, but we have uranium in this country, and the input is actually a whole lot cheaper. So if we're looking at the longer term, it might be worth looking at nuclear. I'm not pro-nuclear, but I certainly would want to do a bit more research on it, and it could be a viable, clean energy source. But I still have reservations about solar farms. They're going to be taking over our agricultural land, which will put food prices up, and then it's going to destroy the land with cadmium telluride and lead that leach out of the solar cells after years, and it poison the land. So I think we need to investigate both a little bit more before we do a knee-jerk reaction into just putting these wind and solar farms all over the place, especially the offshore ones outside Port Stephens and Illawarra. It's going to upset the migration of all the whales and just the infrastructure, the amount of concrete we're going to put in the seabed to hold these floating windmills is just incredible. So I think we really need to put a lot more thought into it.
30 seconds. Okay. Thank you, Barry. Okay. We're now up to question 4. Australia currently ranks second in the world for biodiversity loss and first in the world for mammal extinctions. If elected, how will you advocate for stronger protections to native flora and fauna? And first up, we have Barry Devine of the Heart Party.
Okay, so I'm very strong on biodiversity and not losing it. I start by talking to the relevant scientists about the species we have lost and why, and then analyse what the endangered species are and what we need to do to protect them. Setting aside national parks and wilderness areas for those endangered flora and fauna is a start. Let's stop destroying the wilderness areas with these wind farms and solar farms. But yeah, we do need to protect our flora and fauna, and that's a priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Next up, we have John August of the Fusion Party.
Okay, well, yes, we need to have a government department that does actually look into things, look into what we're going to do about threatened species. There's also the issue of rewilding, of taking species that are endangered in one area, reintroducing them elsewhere. We also want to increase national parks, increase that coverage, which is giving a haven for threatened animals, and also certainly increase funding for this. Now, I guess everyone wants to increase funding on numerous things. I recognise it can be a struggle to find the money for all the things that we would like to do. Certainly that is something we'd like to do. We also have various programs like Indigenous ranges and similar that would be good to get behind and expand. But basically, yes, look into this seriously. Oh yes, another thing, we do actually want to increase the surveillance of customs because invasive species are quite a problem. It's strange what seems to be so inconsistent. The things that are scrutinised carefully and then, exotic flowers, exotic fish, earth-moving equipment with mud still on the tracks. It does seem, if you look at the customs from the outside, rather than some scientists poring over the details and figuring out what to do, it does seem like it's the result of vested interest poking and prodding over the decades. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next up, we have Jerome Laxale of the Labor Party.
Thank you. Since coming to government, we've taken some real steps, the first steps in a decade to protect our native species and ecosystems. You'll recall the former Environment Minister, Susan Ley, in the Morrison government, didn't release the State of the Environment report and kept it private. Well, we've made that public, and it was shocking what it told us. So since then, we've committed to no new extinctions of plants and animals in Australia, which is an ambitious target, but one that we're really working towards. We've invested over $1 billion in a nature positive plan, which is restoring habitats, it's creating green jobs, it's supporting Indigenous land and sea ranges, because we know caring for country works best when it's led by those with deep connections to it. And the next two steps of environmental reform are really important. We attempted that this term, introducing a new environmental laws for a tough independent environmental protection agency, a national one, passed the House of Reps, and has been stuck in the Senate since August 2024. It was there for quite some time, didn't pass Parliament for a variety of reasons. One thing I wanted to make sure happened after that was that we recommitted to it, and I saw it and received public commitments from the Prime Minister that will proceed with that really, really important reform to establish a national
30
EPA,
seconds.
but also change our environmental laws. We're still operating on environmental laws that John Howard put into Parliament and legislated. Those need updating, and we need to do that in a second term.
Thank you, Jerome. Okay, and finally we have Adam Hart of the Greens Party.
Thank you. So, look, a vote for the Greens is a vote for optimism when it comes to the environment, protecting our native flora and fauna. We need to not only stop the native logging in our forests, but we need to protect and rehabilitate the nature corridors and our green spaces. We have such pride, and it's a national treasure, all of our unique species here in Australia, not only in forests, but in waterways as well. That's why the Greens, we have a plan to invest 1% of the federal budget into protecting all of our native flora and fauna. That would produce $17 billion over 4 years, and it would greatly protect the genetic and the biodiversity of all of our precious species. And it's not just forests, like I mentioned. We have Macquarie Harbour down in Tasmania. We might all be familiar with Senator we might be familiar when the Senator held up the salmon in the Senate, and that's really important as a species that is incredibly endangered, and it's being farmed by multinational companies that don't care for the species that we hold true to our heart. They're a sense of pride for us. We need to protect them, and the only way to do that is to have a party that will vehemently defend our species, and it's just 1% for Australia. 1% for the planet, we might all be familiar with. 1% will mean 17 billion over 4 years. I think it's a worthwhile investment.
Thank you, Adam. So that concludes the prepared questions, and now we can move on to the audience questions. Brad, you have helped to send through a question from the audience, but I was wondering whether there was any from Louis. Any questions, Louis? No, okay. Okay. All right, so Are you sending me the questions in consecutive order to the names that you wrote, or?
Sorry, it's only one question that was asked by 3 people.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So it's the same question from 3 different people. So it's Tim, Raj, and one anonymous questioner. So what will happen is that you each will get 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. Please keep your responses sharp and on topic. Bell will go at 30 seconds remaining. Okay? So the first question that we have from the audience tonight is, Labor has approved over 28 new coal and gas projects, and young people can't afford any more delay. Will you support a ban on new coal and gas projects? Okay, so let's start off with perhaps Adam Hart from the Greens.
Yes, we would support a ban, and we would phase out the current fossil fuel mines that are already established. We would also take it a step further, and we would ensure that the mining operators would have to rehabilitate the land that they've been operating in. When a mine is finished, it's normally a scar on the earth. It's full of dangerous chemicals, they leach everywhere. The native flora and fauna is displaced, or it's absolutely mould down, and it's absolutely disgusting. We would ensure that those operators have to rehabilitate, replant and re-establish the ecosystem as practically as possible. It may not be perfect, but it can certainly be a lot better than what it is. This is not just an investment in the environment, this is an investment in people as well. The natural environment is crucial to our mental health and our physical health as well, and we can re-establish green spaces by rehabilitating the earth.
Thank you, Adam. Next up, let's have Barry Devine of the Heart Party.
To close coal mines down would be the destruction of a whole industry. We make money out of coal mines. We sell coal overseas. Would I shut them down? In the short term, no, because we still need them to power our world. As I say, renewables won't be taking that place anytime soon. So maybe in the long term I might change my mind on that, but in the short term, no. What are we going to replace it with? We're going to have brownouts and blackouts and all other sorts of things. Windmills only work 2 days a week on average, and solar cells only work during the day. So we're talking about storage. So maybe if we have sufficient storage, yeah, that might be a good thing. But anyway, yeah, so there's my answer.
Thank you, Barry. Jerome Laxell, we'll move on to you next.
Yeah, look, I just questioned some of the numbers in that question. We've approved 10 coal mines, and the majority of those were extensions, not new mines. There's been 3 approvals for gas projects, but there's been 80 renewable energy projects approved, with an extra 130 in the pipeline. That should tell everyone in the room where our priorities lie and what we see to be as the future of our energy mix. It's pretty clear there what our priority is. We're also the first Australian government ever to refuse a coal mine, Clive Palmer's coal mine, which would have had a huge impact on the Great Barrier Reef. As I said in my previous answer, we need to change environmental laws. Our environmental laws determine how mines and projects are approved or refused, and we're operating under a model that first existed under John Howard,
30 seconds.
and that was a long time ago. To do that, we need to progress our environmental reform package. The EPA, as I said, was the next step. It was stalled in the Senate. We need another term to keep it going.
Thank you, Jerome. And lastly, we'll have John August of the Fusion Party.
Well, our policy is certainly to remove subsidies from fossil fuel activity. Now, as far as new coal mines, it's certainly not something I'm in favour of. One maxim about coal in Australia is, you know, heroin is to Afghanistan what coal is to Australia. So let's say to the extent that we are exporting coal, we need to own the carbon output that results from that coal being burnt in these foreign countries, and at least list that properly and engage with it. So I'm certainly not in favour of opening new coal mines. That's a general sentiment. And as far as like the employment of people in coal mines, now look, I don't know that much about mining, but I would like to think that lithium mines, when we actually increase our economy mining more and more lithium, that we can hopefully repurpose those coal miners into those lithium mines. I don't know that much about geology or mining. I'd hope that they're sort of compatible skill sets. Goodness me. Okay, but yes, we're going to potentially need gas to supplement things, but the point is to try to be serious about expanding our fleet of batteries. We might hit limits. How much can tradies install in a year, all the tradies we have in Australia? How many batteries can we import in a year? How many things can we make in a year? We might be up against these hard limits, but in the context of taking things seriously, maybe we should maintain a bit of gas.
Thank you, John. Okay, the next question. 3 people asked this question, send this one in, about renters and housing standards. The question is, Labor has social housing energy upgrades and batteries for homeowners. What about renters? Would you fund and push states to bring in mandatory energy standards? Perhaps we start first with Barry Devine of the Heart Party. Yep. Sure, no problem. Okay. Labor has social housing energy upgrades and batteries for homeowners. What about renters? Would you fund and push states to bring in mandatory energy standards?
Solar and batteries for renters would be, I suppose, a decision that the owner would need to approve. You can't force things on owners. You can try and legislate them. You can try and give incentives to owners. There's questions about units too. It's a matter of giving incentives to body corporates to be able to install batteries and solar cells that all the unit owners can take advantage of.
All right, thank you, Barry. For next, maybe we have Jerome Laxell of the Labor Party.
Yeah, this is a great question and something that I think we really need to crack if we get given a second term. And I'd be so happy to work with the Climate Change and Energy Minister and Housing Minister to do it. 40% of Bennelong rent, and your questioners are exactly right. We've got a lot of people that can access this technology, get these emissions reductions, get power savings, but renters just cannot. Even people that own their own apartment or townhouse or villa in a strata are up against really ridiculous roadblocks to doing that. All those are held at a state level. And what's needed if we're re-elected is a national approach. Just like we did with getting state governments to improve housing delivery and renters' rights, we need that same approach with household electrification and apartment and strata electrification. There's a whole heap of very easy things that state governments can do, and I'll give you a very easy example, one that I've already discussed with Minister Chantavong in New South Wales. No one would stop you installing an air conditioner
30 seconds.
At your townhouse or at your villa, but they can stop you installing renewable energy on common roofs or a battery in your own property. And I think that inequity needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency, and something that I hope the federal government can take a leadership role in getting reform out of the states and doing in the next term.
Thank you, Jerome. Next up, let's have John August of the Fusion Party.
Okay, well, certainly renting, and again, that is to some degree an issue with the landlord. And I suppose Jerome was talking about having a framework with the states. Now, I tend to think that the federal government obviously could kick in with its grants to the to the state governments or even local governments to sort of help this sort of thing along. And certainly changes the strata law. Now, to some degree, these things are of the states, but certainly the federal government can encourage it, and it can also provide its own dollar grants regardless of what else is going on. Now, this is a matter of priorities. Can the money be found to do that? It's certainly an option and something to encourage. Can I add anything to that? No, I think I will leave it at that.
Thank you, John. And finally, Adam Hart of the Greens.
Yes, thank you. Wow, I mean, as a renter, as a young person, early 30s, so still young, how many crises do we have to deal with? We've got cost of living, we've got climate, economic turmoil, but we do have a plan that can provide some optimism, and it should be a win-win for both the landlords and for us renters. We have a plan that will allow any renter to reasonably request that they have solar panels put on their place. Now, we need to talk about pragmatism. There are a few barriers that the landlord might have to say no to. That might be heritage-listed properties where it's just prevented. It might be extreme body corporate red tape that just makes it way too complicated, or they could be practical and hard to overcome engineering challenges. But we will make it so that the landlord would have to reasonably accept the request for solar. It'll give the renter cheaper energy. It'll give them a sense of optimism that they are doing something and overcoming at least one of these crises. And the landlord can have a low interest loan where they don't have to pay it immediately. They can pay it off early if they would like to, or that money would be recouped when the place is eventually sold. So the terms would be very flexible.
We're at time. Thank you. Okay, there's a question coming through, Brad. All right, okay. So this is combining two questions about who politicians listen to. This election, almost half of voters will be Gen Z or Gen Z, however you say it, and millennials. What are you doing to engage with young people and deliver on issues youth are concerned with? And major parties have faced a terrible situation of corruption. How could corruption be solved? Perhaps we will start with Jerome of the Labor Party.
What do I do to engage young people? I remain very open and accessible at all times and put myself out there, as I've done for 12 or 13 years now, being a councillor and a mayor. Often go out there doing street stalls, door knocking, even outside of election time, and obviously have quite a significant presence online. We recently just did also a deliberative democracy session on energy and the energy transition. I do my job better when I hear directly from voters, and even outside of election periods, I love to get out there and actually hear and understand what's going on the ground. That will remain an important part of my job if I'm re-elected, and those who don't do that, I think, are really bad politicians. So you need to get out there, you need to listen, you need to engage, be it online or in person. And sorry, what was the second part of the answer?
Yeah, the second part of the question was, major parties have faced a terrible situation of corruption. How could corruption be solved?
Yeah. Well, we've implemented the National Anti-Corruption Commission, the first time the federal Commonwealth has been exposed to that. I sit on the Anti-Corruption Commission Oversight Committee, a role that I was appointed to only about 12 months ago. I was asked to go on there, which was quite an honour. And look, we all know that it hasn't probably met our very high expectations yet in terms of starting a public hearing and getting on with it. But you know, the mechanisms are there and they're working, investigations are ongoing. Having that Anti-Corruption Commission there is so important, and its job will be to expose corruption in the public
30
sector
seconds.
and among politicians. And I hope, well, not I hope, you know, I obviously don't want any corruption, but it should do its job. And you know, we've seen the NAC now being investigated, not the NAC, the robo-debt now being investigated after a bit of a blip there. So, you know, these processes will work, and that Anti-Corruption Commission will deliver.
Thank you, Jerome. Let us move to John August of the Fusion Party.
Okay, so as far as young people goes, I can only say within Fusion, we're a bunch of a whole lot of different parties coming from different angles. And let's say young people are a bit into technology, they're a bit into a lot of things. And if you check out our website, I actually have a discussion with Owen in Melbourne, and let's just say he's a representative of the young people. So we've managed to attract a good number of those people into our party, and certainly, you know, they have an equal voice with everybody else, and I've certainly had my discussions within the party. Now, as far as corruption goes, there's a few things that I'll say, and the issue is that while I might be criticising Labor, you can worry that maybe the Libs would be worse. But look, in terms of non-disclosure agreements limiting the arrangements that government has with people, in terms of contracts having commercial in confidence clauses, you know, we talk about transparency, we talk about openness. There's also freedom of information requests, and both Liberal and Labor have been dragging their heels on that. There's protection of whistleblowers. You know, there's a lot of things we can do to lift the game, and you can sort of talk about some of the things that Labor has done, and in some ways they have. They certainly have. There's also other ways of looking and saying, by golly, this is disappointing. I don't want to be too critical here, and you can certainly say the Libs would be worse, but there are some things to get concerned about.
Thank you, John. All right, let's move on to Adam Hart of the Greens.
So in the Greens, one of the ways we engage with young people is we have the Young Greens, which is open to anyone under the age of 30, 31, and being a grassroots party, we develop policies based on the community level, and we speak with cohorts that are directly impacted by the policies that we end up taking to the Parliament. So when it comes to any issues relating to people with disabilities, we work with the disability community. Any issues that affect women's health, we work with women. Anything that is impacting people from the LGBTIQ community, we work with them. So all of our policies, they are derived from a community level support. This ensures that we are not influenced by any big company, and we're not taking any money from lobbyists, and they're not in our ear. We're listening to people. One of the pillars of the Greens is people before profits.
30
so
seconds.
We will always initiate from a grassroots perspective. And this has an innate inbuilt mechanism to avoid corruption, because we're not listening to any one big entity that can sway our opinion. We're listening to you. We're listening to people and the voters. You have an issue, let us know about it. We will design the policies around people. So when it comes to avoiding corruption, people first. When it comes to getting people involved, we have the Young Greens section, and you can join.
Thank you, Adam. And finally, Barry Devine of the Heart Party.
As far as young people, we're only a fairly new party. We haven't really got any young people yet, because we've only got a dozen or so people in the party. But yeah, it's definitely an advantage to get young people and their views on board, because they're the future of the country. So yeah, it'd be good to encourage people, get them interested, get them hopeful for their future. As far as corruption, yeah, we need an anti-corruption board that will investigate things like conflict of interest and things that are underhand, that gain money for people who like underhandedly. Yeah, so I agree that we have to have some sort of limits, well, some way to stamp out corruption and be able to detect it. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so now we can move on to closing remarks. You all have 1 minute. We will ring the bell when there's 30 seconds to go, and the bells will go at a minute. So let's start off with John August of the Fusion Party for your closing remarks.
Okay, so Fusion is committed to acting on climate change, but another thing I was thinking about as far as transparency goes, no problems with government making deals with business, but basically it should be with bricks and mortar businesses in Australia. It should not like dodgy Cayman Island entities, remember that. So definite business in Australia, open tender and no commercial in confidence clauses in the contracts, because that's one of the things the government loves to do, is shove out all this secrecy stuff to, oh, it's not us, it's those corporations. But then anyway, so
30 seconds.
Okay, so what else? Yes, I've done the video pushing back against the climate denialists, so that's one of the things that I've done. So yes, and we have a commitment to a whole lot of policy issues, and I invite you to look at what we're about, because I can only say so much, and it's hard to bring them all up one after the other out here on stage.
Thank you, John. Okay, Adam Hart of the Greens, your minute starts now.
Brilliant. So for my closing remarks, look, a vote for the Greens is a vote for optimism. It's always going to be people above profits. You are what matter, and if you are scared, look, we will have plans to address things like the cost of living crisis, making price gouging illegal, rehabilitating the planet, and we will not be pursuant of any nuclear power plant in Australia. Remember, we are the nuclear disarmament party before we turned into the Greens. The crises we are living in have all been an aggregate of hurt that we've been suffering through when people have not been put before profits. And, you know, we are at a crossroads, and it's great to see that the coalition are finally realising no more emissions, and Labor is starting to listen to and adopting Greens policies, because these have come directly from people, and it would have been great if we were here years earlier, but a vote for the Greens will make sure that people are always first.
Thank you, Adam. Now we will have Barry Devine of the Heart Party. Your minute starts now.
So I'll just spell it out again. HEART stands for Health, Environment, Accountability, Rights and Transparency. We stand for all those things, as well as a good business and economy. So we want everyone to live the healthiest life they can. We want to protect our environment, and yeah, we want to do it in the right way, protect all our species and everything in the environment. We want the government to be accountable for everything they spend. They spend lots of money on things that I don't regard as good value. And then we want rights. The government's writing legislation that are taking our rights away. We need to reverse that, or certainly limit it. And transparency. The government needs to be transparent with the people. And as HEART, I want to represent the voters that vote for me. I want to do everything that the majority of my voters want, and I'll fight for them. So yeah, that's why you should vote for HEART.
Thank you, Barry. And last but not least, closing remarks from you, Jerome Laxell. Your minute starts now.
Medicare was contested at 4 consecutive elections. Whitlam brought it in, Fraser kicked it out, Hawke brought it in, and the only thing that embedded Medicare in our national primary care system was another Hawke win in 1984 and subsequent wins after that. We've got that same example. We're living through it right now. We've been fighting about climate change and environmental protection for the last 15 years. And you would have thought the Liberal Party would have learnt their lesson after being thumped at the last election. But no, they've got worse. They've doubled down by threatening to leave the Paris Agreement, by putting up this $600 billion nuclear fantasy. And you all here in this room need to send them a message. If they get even close to winning government, they will still be fighting on climate change. We'll still be fighting on emissions reduction. We'll still be fighting on renewable energy. We need another 3 years, and if we're lucky, 3 years more after that, to embed this renewable energy transition as part of our economy, part of our ethos, just like we did with Medicare. I'll need your support on election day.
Thank you, Jerome. So thank you all to all the candidates who have joined us tonight for participating in the contest of ideas. And thank you to the audience here tonight and those joining on the live stream for giving up your time this evening. I hope that this forum has better equipped people to make a more informed decision when you cast your votes. Please give a huge round of applause for all the volunteers around the room, as well as those not here this evening who have put in so much time and effort over many weeks. I would also like to thank Ilana Sinclair from the Nature Conservation Council for organising and coordinating all the different organisations together for this event. It always takes a small village to make events like this happen. So that concludes the formal proceedings of this evening. However, we would like to ask for those that can stick around for a bit in the auditorium that we would like to be able to take a photo. We have some call flutes that are going to be handed out shortly to the audience, and we ask the candidates to pose with them. You can also take the call flutes home. So that's being handed around now.
Did I hang around on the screen for the photo?
Yeah, how are we going to get Jerome in the picture, guys?
If he can superimpose
we might need to sort of like shift that way.
Yeah.
He did. He definitely turned up. There is a like cutout of you.
Oh, there's a cutout. Yeah, put the cutout. Yeah, that's right. The cutout. Oh my gosh, look at that. How great. Thanks, Penny.
All right, we're going to pick up in the middle. So if everyone on this side of the room could stand up and fill in the gap there. If the candidates can come down the front, that'd be great. So Jerome's in the perfect spot, so stand next to Jerome. Oh, no, hang on. So the camera's up there.
Thanks, everyone. I might head off if you're taking this photo. I'll be represented by the cutout. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, so you're not quite in the photo, so can you shuffle this way? So anyone that side of my arm is not in the photo, so move in a bit, that's great. Yep. Adam. All right, wonderful. Okay, everyone say cheese. 1, 2, 3, cheese. Cheese. All right, and one more. Say solar savings for all. Solar savings for all. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And have a safe trip home today.